Hello and welcome to a discussion on my channel that I'm having with the Contradictorian, aka Klaus, the Larry Crusher. So, Klaus, if you could introduce your channel and yourself and whatnot.
Whatnot? Yeah, my name is Klaus. My channel is the Contradictorian. I am the nicest person on BookTube because I am the only person who talks about their honest opinion about books and isn't just agreeing with everybody else. I read fantasy and a bit of historic fiction and talk about it on the internet. And people watch it.
Because
I don't know why.
So Klaus put up a video, so if you guys haven't seen it, the link is in the description, saying The Way of Kings is overrated. And obviously, on BookTube, that's quite a controversial opinion because a lot of people, most people, I would say, love Brandon Sanderson and they love The Way of Kings. And I do agree with a lot of what you said. And I thought more about a lot of the criticisms of the book because I loved it. I loved the book. And I thought a lot more about the criticisms as I haven't read Rhythm of War yet. I've done Words of Radiance and Oathbringer. And I think it'll be interesting for us to discuss it, potentially disagree certain aspects of it. It's not just about Way of Kings. It's also some of the reason I wanted to have this discussion is because some of the things you said about some of the things that you thought were overdone. Because I mean, I definitely agree with you with regards to it being too long. I think it could really be cut down. And there are definitely things I agree with. But I thought we could just go through your criticisms of it. And then maybe I could talk about some of the things I love about it. And we'll see how we can unpack BookTube's darling together. How does that sound?
But I'm BookTube's darling, but okay.
You are BookTube's darling. So if you could quite briefly, please, state just your main criticisms of it.
Briefly, so not like for half an hour again.
Yeah, don't do like a half an hour rant in detail. Just statement wise.
Yeah,
so
statement wise.
So you can work through those.
Yeah, so I think Way of Kings. So I don't hate it to say that once again. I give it 3 stars. On my
you
second
did hate it at first.
I did hate it and DNF'd it, like your girlfriend did. So don't accuse me of something you shouldn't accuse me of in public. Yeah, my biggest criticism of it is basically that it is too long. It is 1,252 pages exactly, and I think that is too long for an individual book. And if I read that long of a book, I expect a fantastic ending because it wasn't my first Sanderson read. I love Mistborn.
Surely you should expect like a fantastic, like you should
really epic, like Mistborn.
Take away endings. A lot. Take away a lot from it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I finished it and I was like, that was fine, but like, did I need to read 1,000 pages beforehand? Not really. So that is my biggest criticism of it. The other stuff I have to criticize are mostly criticisms I have made about Sanderson in general, about his writing style. I prefer something. I don't think he has the best prose or dialogue, especially.
Yeah, I would say no. I would argue that it's intentional.
Yeah, that's what he says anyways. He says he writes it on purpose so that everybody can understand it and that he repeats stuff so often so that everybody can understand it.
That is one thing I can agree with. I found that more so in Mistborn though than in Stormlight, the repetitive nature. Like Well of Ascension is my favorite book, but that beginning bit where it completely re-explains the magic system like I'm some sort of complete moron, I find that stuff very frustrating. I don't like to be repeated to. I think he does it really small amounts in Stormlight. I don't think he's really repetitive in Stormlight, not compared to Mistborn.
Yeah, the magic system explanations.
He trusts me more.
Like those were more repetitive in Mistborn because the magic system was more complicated, at least up to what I've seen from Stormlight so far.
Yeah,
I guess.
Well, I've read the next 2 books. I would say I'm not going to spoil them, but I think he does trust us more with regards to Stormlight. He trusts the reader more with Stormlight and just sort of I don't think it's very repetitive, and I can't think of examples where it is. I mean, maybe he does, like he might say someone's name, like when he's like if you meet a character again in the next book, he might say someone's name and put they're this person's wife or they're this person, and you're like, oh yeah, that person's father. But it's frustrating because I already knew their name. But because there's a lot of names in the book, that probably is helpful to some readers, and it depends how much time people take between each book.
Yeah, totally.
I read Words of Radiance, then Oathbringer, like one after the other, essentially.
Yeah, then you don't need that stuff. Yeah,
I did Warbreaker in between, but
yeah. But what I mean about repetitive wasn't the magic system in this one. So I agree that it's the magic system. So setting stuff is more repetitive in Mistborn because you have those 12 or 14 or metals and stuff.
Yeah.
But here, I'm talking about the plot line, because the plot line, in my opinion, it is
too
Kaladin.
Stretched out.
Kaladin is so depressed, and I get it. And I'm so sorry.
I think this is where we disagree the most. Yeah. What annoys you about that plot line?
I mean, Unleash. I get it that if he shows you for 400 pages that Kaladin's life is shit and that he is depressed, of course that drags you into it, and you can like relate to Kaladin on so many levels. But my issue is that I don't need that. I need to read 2 scenes or 2 chapters of Bridge 4 running above the plains and stuff, and then I have understood it, because I'm like I can relate to people very well. You wouldn't believe it if you see me on BookTube, but I actually can. Like, so I need those 2 chapters, and then I'm in it, and I am like, oh wow, Kaladin, you poor person. Like, I hope things turn out well for you. But the thing is, he does it for 10 chapters, 50 chapters, whatever. Like, for the Kaladin chapters alone are longer than many other books. And if you look at the raw plot line, like what happens purely on the level of plot, there's too less plot in this thing to justify this page count, in my opinion.
I do see where you're coming from with regards to Kaladin and the depression and his struggles. The reason I think because it is the middle section with regards to Kaladin's point of views, it is painful. Like, it is like, oh man, but that's how he's feeling, and I thought that was intentional. It's like, do you not feel like
I don't doubt it's intentional?
No, but once you get to the end, and there's a bit of relief, is it not worth more? It's not more impactful because of the elongated struggle.
Not to me. Like, I need, as I said,
because it would be rushed. It would have felt rushed if it was 2 chapters, because it wouldn't have felt like a struggle.
I don't. He doesn't have to write like Pierce Brown would. He doesn't have to like write 1 chapter of Kaladin being with Bridge 4 and then boom, everything's fine. That is the opposite thing. But he has to find like.
Because for me, it was the struggle that was impactful. It was the fact that it was just like, oh man, your life sucks, man. Your life sucks. And then once you get to the end, it's like you can breathe again.
Yeah, and I can do that after 600 pages or 500 pages, not after 1,200 damn pages. So this is one of my biggest issues with it. And the other thing is like the start of it. I mean, it's the first book in a 10-book series, so obviously it has first book syndrome. But I've read other books in long series that aren't finished right now, like Song of Ice and Fire and stuff. And I think they do a better job of setting things up without writing 4. Is it 4 prologues or 3 prologues? I don't know.
Sort of. There's the prelude, and then I think having the point of view of the kid was a bad choice, in my opinion. I think it should, because it starts off as a kid observing Kaladin. A kid in his little regiment.
True.
I think that's a bad choice. I think he should have skipped that, and I think the prelude is fine because it's very short. And think
it's interesting. Prelude is really interesting.
Yeah,
epic thing.
When I read that prelude, I thought that I would love it straight away because it had this very epic, fantastical, mysterious element to it, and the visual imagery of all them swords stuck in the ground.
That was really awesome.
and they've sacrificed something, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for this. This is going to be a journey. The Seth prologue, I think maybe it went a bit too hard and was a bit too long, but like with regards to the Brandon Sanderson's hard nouns, but I'd still think it's a good prologue to like kick the story off. But then I think it should have jumped straight to Kaladin in the cage as a slave. I think that would have flowed better. I think just adding that kid, because we see that moment again later on.
Later on, we see it again, and
so there's no need for it at the beginning.
Yeah,
really.
I feel like he couldn't decide. He wrote all of those prologues and thought, I could start the book like this, I could start the book like this, and he just couldn't decide. And that's a tough choice to make as a writer.
It would ruin the twist.
Yeah.
But well, it wouldn't completely ruin it, I guess, because he could have. Well, he splits it in half. In fact, do we see it twice? Yeah, we do, because we see the prologue where the kid watches Kaladin fighting all the people, and then the Shardbearer comes from him. Then we see the moment again. That there are spoilers in this video, obviously.
Yeah.
Then we see the moment again where Kaladin kills the Shardbearer, and then we see the consequences afterwards.
Yeah.
So the Shardbearer flashback could have just been moved to earlier on, once we were already established into the story. Just having that one extra chapter, I know what you mean. It does bloat the beginning out. And Shallan's chapters are boring. I feel like she should have already been like with Yasna, and then we could have had like a couple of pages saying how she got there. Like we could have had
so much in it, like
the
start. Let's stick with the start for a moment, because
yeah,
I read that book first time I read it, and I DNF'd it. I read the first 200 pages up to the Nanbala chapter, and I think I've read 7 different POVs up to that point. And I think Kaladin was the only one who had 2 chapters, and everybody else had 1 chapter. It felt like Malice to me, honestly, in terms of how many different perspectives were there. And I was like, where is the connection? I could realize it's the same world, and this is the sister of that person, and something like that. But there are different characters in every single.
I don't even remember that interlude. That's how unimportant it is. I agree with you about that. The interludes in The Way of King. I think the interludes in the next 2 books are way better and way more important because we're established now. But I think because it's the first book, it shouldn't behave like that, because it's, I don't want to say overwhelming, because you'll get a bunch of fantasy fans going, well, if you think it's overwhelming, you're just not good at reading fantasy. And it's like, yeah, but we don't want to alienate people, right? I mean, obviously there are niches.
I think it's good for people who know the cosmere, because I think these interludes serve a purpose in the entire cosmere thing. But if you come to it like me, this was the first Sanderson I read.
Yeah. They do recommend that it isn't the first.
Yeah, but you don't know that. It's not. If I look at the book, there's not like read Mistborn before you pick up this book. So
because you can enjoy the story without the cosmic knowledge.
And that's not how I felt about the interludes. I thought like
you felt
this
like
doesn't
you
work
weren't
if
in
you
on
don't
it.
know the cosmere. Like,
yeah,
and I always say a book should live on its own.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would say don't read Oathbringer if you haven't read any of the other cosmere. Like if you got, I think you've got to read Mistborn and Elantris and Warbreaker before reading Oathbringer, and you definitely have to read Warbreaker before reading Words of Radiance. We don't have to. It's way better. Personally, I haven't read Elantris.
Sanderson says it so himself.
Yeah, but I understand.
Sanderson says that himself. Like I've watched his lecture, and he's like, I can understand everybody who DNFs Way of Kings at the start, because it's tough to get into if you don't know anything I've written before. And I was sitting there and I was like nodding all the time. Yeah, that's happened to me, because I was overwhelmed, honestly. And I am an experienced fantasy reader.
I don't know why I wasn't overwhelmed. I mean, I guess I was. I was intrigued enough. I don't know. I liked Kaladin enough. I did want to be with Kaladin the whole time. So I will say that now. Shallon's or
You didn't want to
Shallan's,
suffer all the time. Okay.
yeah. Well, I find him very relatable.
He is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of men that there is a depression epidemic among young men, and I definitely get that. And the thing, see, this is where I disagreed with what you said about how it's like, oh, I don't need that. Oh, Kaladin's always depressed. He's always depressed. And I'm like, without getting too deep and bleak, that is what it's like. It's like it's always there. It's constant.
Yeah, and I get that, but
I feel like it's quite visceral. The fact that it's really dragging you through this. It is a slog, but depression is a slog.
Certainly, I mean, obviously depressed reading this all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. See, I've had conversations with my girlfriend about this actually, where she says, "Why do you listen to music like that?" Like I listen to like sort of depressing indie music, and in the shower I'll listen to like the Outlander score or something. I like sort of
the Outlander score is awesome though.
It is amazing, but like slow, sullen, melancholic sort of music, and I'm like, it makes me happy in a sad way. It's like, what does that even mean?
I have to agree with her.
I like it. I don't know why. There's in Doctor Who in Blink, Sally Sparrow is like walking through this abandoned derelict house, and her friend goes, "Why would you want to be here?" And she's like, "Because it makes me sad." And she goes, "Why would you want to be sad?" And she goes, "It's happy for deep people."
Ooh. Oh God.
I don't know. There's
maybe I'm too deep for it.
Well, if we want to get into see, this is the weirdest place to bring this up, a Way of Kings video, but if we want to get all Freudian and talk about philosophy and existentialism, it's the idea that suffering brings meaning. So like I'm saying, yes, the middle with Kaladin and the overly depressive nature of it is overly depressing and is a slog, but that's what gives the ending meaning, you know? And I would feel, and I get what you're saying though, that could be communicated in maybe 400 less pages.
Because that is what Sanderson says himself. It's like he has this like promise payoff progress thing. Like you have to give progress towards a certain thing, and your characters have to overcome all of the suffering. And he certainly does that. But it works for me with half the page count.
I think he's a bit of a hypocrite because I've seen his lectures as well. And this idea that, because I live by that when I write. I don't want to make decisions, because his lectures are really impactful. I don't want to make promises to my reader if I'm not going to fulfill those. So I've tried to be really conscious of that. By doing this thing in my book, am I setting up an expectation to my readers that I'm not going to fulfill on? Obviously, I don't want to just spoon feed my readers and give them everything they want, and I want there to be surprises. But there's a difference between surprising and subverting and completely going away that the narrative shouldn't have gone. So, for example, spoilers for season 8 of Game of Thrones. I'll do a timestamp. You've seen it.
I wish I hadn't.
Yeah, same. Arya killing the Night King is a bad subversion because the book has completely set it up to be Jon, and it's owed to Jon. And the fact that it wasn't, and they hadn't set up the groundwork for it not to be, I consider that to be bad writing, because it's giving promises and not paying them off properly.
That was not as bad as the ending with Bran being the king. That was the most terrible.
Well, that's another thing as well. You can't set up these things and not pay them off. I actually don't have an issue with any of the narrative choices that they actually made. I think they all could have been fine if they had set it up and had like 4 seasons to make it work. I think the way Dany's character went is a good way for her character to go. I actually genuinely think that would have been brilliant if they had done the groundwork. If they had done the groundwork, I think it would have been.
The groundwork is there,
superb.
and the books, the groundwork is there already, but
they rushed it. So Brandon Sanderson talks about promises and payoff all the time. And I personally think that The Way of Kings, for the most part, does deliver a lot of those, apart from maybe I wanted to know more about Zeph. Because by him being the first proper point of view, like, for example, my girlfriend was like, He was like my favorite character, and he's not even in it, and that bothered her. Yeah, and that's true.
There's like 4 chapters, I think. Yeah.
So I think you will hate. I think you might like Words of Radiance more. I think you might hate Oathbringer.
But the thing is, in Mistborn, I always got the payoff in the ending, like massive payoff. Like, okay, the ending of Well of Ascension is a bit of a tricky payoff, but it's a payoff. Like,
I think it's an awesome payoff.
Yeah, but it's not like really what you want to have as a reader at that moment. But it's awesome, and I always trusted Sanderson. On my second read of Way of Kings, I knew like Sanderson writes good endings, and his plot is perfectly coming together at the ending. And so I was like, okay, it's boring, it's repetitive, but the ending will be worth it. And then I read the ending, and it wasn't a Mistborn level of ending, and that is why I was really disappointed with the ending. It is a good fantasy ending. Like, it's better than, like, say, a First Law ending. That in some kind of way. Yeah. But it's not what I wanted to have from this. Like, the epic series everybody talks about. I was thinking like, boom, and there was like this, and that's all.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do. Do you know what? I actually think that the Way of Kings and the Words of Radiance like form a plot. So if those two had been crammed into one and had been that long, I think you would have been happy with that.
That's possible. But now, 2 things. First of all,
What?
Obviously, the first book is 1,252 pages already. So you should be able to construct a satisfying arc in that one single book already, because it is a lot of pages. And it's in tiny script and tiny font as well. So you should be able to do that.
It's something like 400,000 words.
Yeah, that is like 3 normal novels. Yeah. So, and the other thing is, now I'm doubting the decision to split Way of Kings into 2 books in the UK, and in Germany. Or do you do that in UK as well?
My copy of Way of Kings is 1 copy, but usually they split them in half.
Yeah, and so that has to be even more unsatisfying.
Yeah, but they're not 2 different books. It's the same book. It's just split in 2 for printing purposes. You're not meant to like read one and be like, oh, the first half is entirely satisfying as a book on its own, because it's just not going to be. Yeah,
so it's a bit like Lord of the Rings, but still. You should be able to give me more in terms of, because in my opinion, what Sanderson's strengths are, like plot and world building. Those are his strengths. And the other stuff I rate, like dialogue, prose, characters, I don't think he's the best at that. But if you take plot and setting in the Way of Kings, I didn't feel like he was playing to his strength enough. Like, the world building didn't intrigue me as much as it did in Mistborn, and the plot also didn't satisfy me as much as it did in Mistborn. In any Mistborn book. So,
I mean,
I expect more.
My intrigue definitely came from the fact that I'd never read a world like it. I do think, I guess Mistborn appeals to the sort of dark aesthetic that I like. The sort of it's like got like a gritty.
Yeah, it's almost grimdark because of all the there's a lot of violence in it as well, and
the aesthetic of it all.
Yeah.
Stormlight feels very colourful to me, especially with the Spren. The Spren really give a lot of colourful life to the imagery. Although this is coming from someone that reads and they really see images when they read. A lot of people don't see images when they read, but like I really visualize it. Like sometimes I can hear like music when I'm reading Way of Kings. Not actually hear music, but I think Sanderson writes in a very filmic way.
Yeah.
So I can almost feel cinematic like cliches like playing out as I'm reading it. Is that weird? Does that sound weird? Like
it's how I experience it, but I can see why you would, because I think I've called Sanderson Marvel before. Like Sanderson is writing superhero fantasy. Like
Yeah, no, Brandon, it's blockbusters.
Mistborn is a Marvel superhero movie. It's like
Yeah.
superheroes who have, yeah. So I don't understand why it hasn't been adapted yet.
It's definitely like a blockbuster. Like the whole series is like it's like a blockbuster multiverse. So I do get what you're saying. I suppose it's what people want from it. That because I want different things. I don't necessarily read Stormlight to get the same thing that I get from First Look or Senlin. So I know that if I'm going into Stormlight, I'm going for this long, epic TV show type experience. Like I know it's going to take me a few weeks to read it because that's how I like to read it. I like to come in and do a few chapters, and I like to spread it out because it makes me feel, and because it's written in such a filmic, blockbustery way, and that you can sort of group the chapters together, and structurally they're like TV show episodes. There's no way anyone could ever adapt Stormlight into a movie. It's just not going to happen. It has to be a TV. It has to be, yeah. But that's how it's written. I think Brandon Sanderson knows that. I think he deliberately writes because he wants to be adapted. Yeah. I think Mistborn is written in a way for it to definitely be adapted. That's what him
waving at Hollywood, like, "Here I am, take me and film my stuff."
Is. Yeah, I really do feel like that. I feel like that is exactly how it's been written, because that is his nerdy desire. I think Mistborn has been written in a way because he's like, make a video game, make a video game, make a video game. That's what he wants.
100%. So, it's his stuff.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, I do actually agree with most of your criticisms. I just don't care.
Yeah, that's what I think. Because I was surprised that it is sort of your favorite book or one of your favorite books. And usually we are both very picky about prose and all of that stuff.
I don't think his prose is as bad as you think.
I don't think it's not. I wouldn't say it's bad.
It's a bit cheesy.
His dialogue is bad, in my opinion.
Sometimes
his humor.
Sometimes it's
humor
corny,
is like.
Oh yeah, I think his humor is really corny. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the prose itself isn't bad. It's just matter of fact. It is reduced. It is what's happening.
Man Carrying Thing has a really good video analyzing Sanderson's style. It's quite interesting in how his word choices and the way he chooses to phrase things are almost deliberately colloquial. And I think wait.
Man Carrying Thing has actually an analysis video, like really analysis.
Yeah, he analyzed Brand. He says, I think the video is called.
Why have I never seen that?
I'm going to link it in the description because it's really good. It's does Brandon Sanderson have a style? And it's quite interesting because as a writer, I was like, yeah, I suppose he does, because you you don't feel like he does when you're reading it. It does feel very like you're not reading any stylized prose, but when you sort of pay attention to why he chooses to word things in a certain way, you're like, I prefer lyrical prose. I prefer lyrical prose. I prefer things to be beautiful. It does get better in Words of Radiance. I think it goes downhill again in Oathbringer. I think that's because he's so popular by that point, and he's got his whole team around him, that he's got a bunch of yes men now. I'm worried about Rhythm of War because I'm worried that like his books aren't getting edited anymore.
Oh, so he's going the Libadugo way.
Yeah, where he could just publish whatever he wants now, and people just will do it, you know. Whereas Words of Radiance, it was like Way of Kings was good, and it was like Words of Radiance, it was like, right, I need to now be better. But I think with Opening, he was like, I'm gonna do whatever I want because now I have all the fans and I can just do it.
Possible,
yeah,
but
I really do agree with you that it is probably too long.
Thank you.
Yeah, but no, I think you're wrong about Kaladin. I really, maybe they could have cut out a couple of the chapters and some of the flashbacks. And Shallan's entire storyline is pretty boring. Oh man, I don't love that book as much as I thought I did. What have you done to me?
The power of my discourse.
Yeah. The thing is, you can change your mind about something with hindsight. I think that is a thing.
I've changed my mind about the blade itself, for example. Like,
Yeah.
I gave it 3 stars, and after I read Before They Are Hanged, and especially last Argument of Kings, I was like, "What book? Oh!" So
exactly. I really like the blade itself versus the other two. They make the blade itself look
better.
Yeah. Well, no, I would say as a single book, compared to the other two in the first law, the blade itself comes across as crap comparatively if we're just looking at the single narratives.
Yeah.
But as a whole, as a trilogy, the other two elevate the first one and its purpose so well, especially with the fact that the first chapter is called The End and the last chapter is called The Beginning. I love that. I really love that. Yeah. But this isn't a first law video.
No,
but I mean,
sadly not.
It's definitely good to talk about how authors approach their structure. And I guess, Brandon Sanderson in The Way of Kings, especially with the interludes, is dropping too much on people all at once. And I can definitely relate with your struggle.
Another critique I made about the narrative structure is like that he starts with Shallan and Kaladin, and then comes the interlude, and then come Dalinar,
and then goes to Dalinar later.
Yeah, and it's completely like Shallan is gone for 400 pages when I have just got used to her, and I'm like, I mean, Tolkien does that as well, but he does it with characters I knew beforehand. Like, I have seen them running around in Fellowship, and I know who Frodo and Sam are, even though they are not with the other people after that.
Yeah.
But here is this just, why? Like, I was starting to get used to people and to what's happening, starting to understand.
Dalinar's awesome, yeah.
Yeah, Dalinar's my favorite character, yeah.
Dalinar's great, and I do feel like, they should have introduced Dalinar. He should have introduced Dalinar a lot earlier. 100%. And maybe just cut out some of the interludes. Basically, I think we can both agree that The Way of Kings needs some of its fat trimmed, so it's a bit more of a streamlined experience.
Yeah.
Alas, I do think that Kaladin's storyline is storyline numero uno. It's number one. He's the main character. It is about him.
It's his book, yeah.
And I think the struggle and the length of that struggle, I don't think the ending would have been as impactful if you didn't have all that time, just bridge run after bridge run, because it's communicating how repetitive it is, how dangerous and staggering and annoying. And there are different elements to each bridge run. It's not like it's just the same
bridge
run over and
like
over
him,
again.
I'm carrying the bridge on my side and that stuff, but again,
I don't need progress.
Give me one paragraph that says we try different things and stuff. And
what? I don't like that much of a rush.
What?
I don't like what? I don't like summarization. That's an issue that I had with Assassin's Apprentice, was that it just kept summarizing everything. And I'm like, I want to be in the scene. I want to feel it. You know? So I don't know. I think it comes down to how someone processes visual information.
Yeah, another thing I said was like that your own background plays into the entire thing, like how you experience the world building and stuff. So that if you have more like a scientific background or come more from like biology, physics,
that's what you said. Yeah, you said that people that like technology and science and less about people are going to be more into Sanderson. Well, I don't fit into that.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was bringing it up, because like it's like a general rule, but it of course doesn't apply to everybody. But usually, Sanderson's world building is very hard.
I am the unique exception.
Luke is not like other girls. Yeah,
I am not like other girls. Exactly.
And the thing is, like, because Sanderson has very hard world building, hard magic system, rules for everything. It's his strength, and it is also, in my opinion, his weakness, because I prefer more of that wonder and magic, and I don't really get that in
I want to
so far.
rebut you there because I think like Mistborn is hard as it comes.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Mistborn as a series is fully erect,
Yeah, and it worked for me.
But Stormlight is I would say it's a lot softer and more full of wonder. I would say there's a lot more mystery. We don't know how the magic. I still don't know how the magic system works, and I'm on book 3. There's layers, there's intricacies.
Yeah, and there's stuff like Spren, but I think I'm not intrigued enough to find out what Spren are, because I'm like, there's this stuff, and there's like all of those women wearing their arms like this and hiding their hands, and I'm like, what's the point? And I'm not intrigued enough to ask myself, really, what's the point? Like, I'm not making conspiracy theories up why these people are hiding their hands. I'm just like, why do I need that? Why are they hiding their hands?
I'm not trying to convince you that it's for you.
Yeah, you can't.
I just wanted to defend my boy Kaladin, you know? That's all it is. He's my bro. Do you know what I mean? I feel his pain. You know?
I see you. I see you carrying around that bridge all the time.
I too am a complete hero. So I'm a long-haired hero as well. So you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Yeah. Saving all my bridge boys.
Bridge boys.
All my bridge boys. Yeah, no. Boys. I think we've reached a common understanding. But you hate Kaladin, and that's fine.
I don't hate Kaladin. I just need a bit less Kaladin than all of those pages. He's interesting enough, but it is, and like in general, I don't think Sanderson's character work is completely outstanding. Like, it isn't.
Yeah, I agree.
And voice, especially voice, like, I don't feel like the voices of these individual characters are distinctive enough.
It's not anything like First Law, yeah.
It's not like First Law or something, or even a Song of Ice and Fire, because I always can distinguish a page from a Brienne of Tarth chapter from a Tyrion chapter, and I feel like I can't really do that in Stormlight.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I don't know why I love it so much. Actually, I agree with like most of your criticisms. I'm not sure why, because I'm this critical about basically everything else that I read.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know what it is about Stormlight, because you get a lot of people that say, "Oh, you just want to make Stormlight videos because they're popular." It's like, genuinely, no. I love the series. I don't know why. If you watch my Oathbringer review, right? I mean, it's a spoiler review, so you'd have to.
I haven't watched it because it's spoilery.
Yeah, but my criticisms and me just ripping on it is like 85% of the video, and it's the highest rating I gave any of the cosmere books. It was like, I was like, this is my favorite one. I don't know why. I don't know why this is. I think,
but that's fine. It's fine as long as you like it. It's fine for you.
Yeah, but I want to get to the bottom of this. Why am I able to flatten or disregard my criticisms that I have with this series? Why do I love it so much that I'm willing to ignore things that I'm normally super critical on with other stuff? I criticize prose all the time, and Sanderson's prose is definitely not the sort of prose that I typically find high bar or like elegant at all, and or I don't think it's particularly sophisticated. I don't think it's bad. I think, but I don't know. Why do you think I'm able to just ignore this stuff?
Because you're dumb.
Because I'm dumb.
I can't explain it to you. Like, you mentioned that you see it like visually when you read it, and that stuff
maybe that's why.
That's why there's something in this book that triggers that in your brain, that you see it visually.
Sometimes, really sometimes I don't have that.
Yeah, so
that's why I struggled with the blade itself as well. Actually, is that I found Before They Are Hanged and The Last Argument of Kings to have much more visceral imagery, which allowed me to really be in it and see it. But the blade itself, not so much. I didn't really know what the Agrion looked like for most of that book, and it distanced me a bit. That's why I think I really like Senlin, because it's got very striking imagery. Because I mean, it's one place. you got this tower, and it's very striking, and it's easy for my brain to visualize it. With the second book of First Law, before they are hanged, that city with all of like the destroyed buildings and the statues, I found that to be very visceral, and I really liked visualizing it. And I like, okay, so it's the balance of setting and character and plot. So with The Way of Kings, I like the setting of the Shattered Plains. I think it's a cool setting. I think if it was like an anime, I think there would be some really cool art to come from this setting, in my opinion. Obviously, I want it to be live action if it's adapted. But with regards to, I think with books, I really prefer books to have quite striking visual imagery. And I do think Stormlight has striking visual. I think Shardplate is very interesting. The swords cutting through people without cutting them, their eyes burning. It's all very striking visually. And that sort of stuff appeals to me.
Because
that appeals to me.
I don't really, I pay attention to that, but it isn't what I actively look for in a book, or it's not something that makes me enjoy a book a lot more than I would without it. Like,
what drags you towards a book the most? Just out of curiosity.
I always said characters, but by now I'm thinking dialogue. I think if the dialogue is sassy, witty, that is what gets me
well structured.
Is character, like voice. If the voice is carried through the dialogue, perfect.
Yeah, his humor is a bit. I don't think his dialogue is necessarily bad. I think the humor is cheesy, and sometimes things feel forced or fake. The main reason why I DNF Malice is because of the really painful dialogue. Yeah,
and the
I
painful
really thought
prose
it was
and the short chapters and
dislike.
Yeah.
Do you know what is on the way though? I got an email this morning. My copy of Shadow of the Gods.
Shadow of the Gods. I'm still thinking about reading it or not, because it has just 3 POV characters, and that should be easier for me.
Well, but also he's written like 900 books in between.
Yeah, so he should have improved.
Shadow of the Gods.
Yeah. And I've said that he has improved. Yeah, I've read Valor, so second book after Valis, and Malice.
Valis.
And the prose has certainly improved. It's not excellent like anything, but it's okay now. So he should have improved up to Shadow of the Gods.
Are you going to read Words of Radiance?
Yeah, I think in December or January.
Okay,
I will read it. But
we'll do a discussion, or are you going to do a discussion with other people? Well, you can do both.
I can do both. I'm famous.
Yeah.
I'm on many live shows.
You're literally on every live show on BookTube. So
because I'm good at live shows.
We shall wrap this up then.
Yeah. One thing I have to mention is that I think Gardens of the Moon does a better job at setting up a 10-book series than Way of Kings does.
I will give it a go. Thank you all for watching that rather messy conversation where I basically don't defend Way of Kings at all, and I mostly just nod my head at Klaus.
Always a good idea.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, let's have a discourse.
Let's defend it.
Let's debate this. And I was like, no, I agree.
Let's rip him apart. And I was like,
yeah, no, I kind of agree. Yeah. Can we just agree for 1 second? Hold up. Wait. Let me just agree with you for 1 minute.
Let's discourse.
Yeah. All right, cool. Like, comment, subscribe. Subscribe to the Contradictorian because he's the bollocks. There's some cool Sando Way of Kings videos in the keep doing this in the description, so check those out and stay tuned for more discussions. Goodbye.